Hi and welcome to Fun Swedish. In Swedish, we love long words. Sammansatta ord, compound words. Depending on your mother tongue, you might find this normal or it might scare you a lot. Words like Europaparlamentsvalsundersökningen, sjuksköterskeutbildningskoordinator can make you want to quit Swedish. But today, we're gonna teach you some tips and tricks so that you can cope with these crazy words. How to read them, how to pronounce them, and much more. So, let's get started. Understanding what it means. When you see these long words, you kind of need your brain to divide them into smaller words to see what every word means separately. And when you have all the little words, then you can put them together. It's kind of like you solving a little rebus or a riddle. You try to see how all these words fit together and what new meaning comes out of them. And while you do this, don't forget to think like a Swede, or maybe even a Swedish Viking. For example, we have the Swedish word vitlök, and we know that vit is how we say white in Swedish, and lök is our word for onion, white onion. I know that for some people, a white onion looks like this, but they are very rare in Sweden. So for us, a white onion and vitlök is the garlic. So now that you know that vitlök means garlic, then you can identify this word in other words as well, like vitlöksbröd, white onion bread. Yes, that's how we say garlic bread. But remember, in contrast to English, we need to put all this together. So, no space between the words, which is what makes reading them harder. But as you learn more and more Swedish words, it will be easier to identify them and separate them in your mind. Still confused on how you should think about this? Then I want to introduce you to this man, Piccotaro, the master of compounding words.
I have a pen, I have an apple, apple pen. I have a pen, I have pineapple, pineapple pen, apple pen, pineapple pen, pen, pineapple, apple pen.
Pronunciation of compound words. Another tricky part, if you're learning Swedish, is to get the pronunciation of the compound word right. Sometimes we have a compound word in Swedish that is also a compound word in English. So it's easy to think that it should be pronounced the same way. Like the word football in English. In Swedish we have basically the same word, at least it's written very similar. But the pronunciation is very, very different. We say fotboll. In Swedish we need to put a stress on every word in the compound word. And we also need to think if it should be a long vowel or a short vowel. Let's get back to our example. Football. Now we're not talking about American football, we're talking about real football. In English, football is also a compound word. It consists of the word foot and ball, not hand-aid. And when you pronounce it in English, you kind of pronounce it like it's all the same word. Football. It's also quite flat. Football, but not in Swedish. In Swedish, we say this word like this, fotboll. As you can hear, when we say this word, we kind of put emphasis or stress in every word in this compound word. So that's why it sounds like this, fotboll. And this is why we get this kind of singy-songy melody. And you can also hear that the O in fot is longer, fot, because we're just one consonant coming after. But the other O, which is in boll, sounds a bit different. It sounds shorter because we have two consonants, two L coming after. So the stress is more in the consonants. Boll. So again, fotboll. Let's listen to the differences between Swedish and English in how we pronounce this word. In English, football. In Swedish, fotboll. Jag spelar fotboll. Another important thing to remember when it comes to pronunciation is that when we compound words, we still think about them as separate words. If you have seen a video about the K sound, then you know that if a K is followed by an Ä, it kind of sounds more like this, sh, For example, in the word kärlek, love. However, the word kikärtor, this looks like it's followed by an ä after the k. But this is really a compound word. It consists of kik and then ärtor. Kikärtor. So the second k in this word does not change to a sh sound, because the k and the ä here are really not together in one word. They're just two words put together in a compound word. So watch out for these compound words, because they can normally break the normal pronunciation rules. But if you want to know more about Swedish pronunciation rules, then we really recommend you to take our Blueberry video course, which has 15 hours of lessons that covers all you need about Swedish pronunciation rules in detail. Check it out. The link to the course is up here and in the description below. En versus ett. Another common question we get in our courses is, how can you tell if a compound word is an n-ord or an ett-ord? In the word kanelbulle, it's kind of easy, because we say en kanel, but also en bulle. So the right answer here is that it should be en kanelbulle. But what happens if you combine an n-ord with an ett-ord? For example, in this example, köttbulle, meatball, ett kött, en bulle. Well, the rule here is pretty simple. Just look at the last word. In this case, it is en bulle. So here, even if kött is an ett word, since bulle is in the end, then it should be en köttbulle, a meatball. Then, of course, we have the issue of knowing if the single word is an n-ord or an ett-ord. But that is a whole other topic. For that, you can check out this video that we made about it. How to put compound words together. In most cases, when you have a compound word, you just put two words together to make a new one, like in this example, kanelbulle, kanelbulle. But sometimes we have to make some minor changes to make the compound word work, like adding an s or changing the spelling a bit. And now we're going to teach you when you need to do this. Let's start with the letter S that magically appears in the compound words. There are different situations that can make us add an S in the middle of the compound word. So, when does this happen? Number one, when the word you're compounding is already a compound word. So basically, when you construct a compound word of three single words. For example, we had the word we mentioned before, fotboll, football. This is already a compound word consisting of two words, fotboll. But now I want to add a third word, which would be skor, fotbollsskor, football shoes. Here you see an S after the word fotboll and before the third word starts, which makes it a little bit easier to read. Fotbollsskor. Another example is vitlöksbröd. Also here we have the S in the middle word of the compound word. So basically before the third word starts. And when you see the S, you know where to divide it to make it easier to read. But we have other situations where we also put an S in the compound word. Number two, when the word ends with ning or ing. For example, ordningsvakt, security guard. And then we have also the rule number three. If the word ends with a letter combination itet or hon, written like this, tune, then we should also put an S. Identitetskort, identification card, or oppositionsparti, opposition party. Then we have come to our last rule, when you should put an S in the compound word, and that is number 4, exceptions. There are compound words that don't follow any of these rules we just mentioned before, but they still get an S in the middle of the compound word. And I think it has to do with pronunciation. It just sounds better to put an S. For example, in this word, en köksfläkt. Köksfläkt is how we say kitchen fan, and it consists of the words kök and fläkt. But it sounds a bit weird to say kökfläkt, so instead we say köksfläkt. It sounds better. So I guess an exception, but it also sounds better, easier to say at least. So That was it for adding s to the compound word. But like we said before, we also have some other strange cases, like when we change the spelling of one of the words we are compounding. Just a little bit. We have, for example, the compound word kyrkogård, which is how we say cemetery or graveyard. So this compound word actually consists of the word kyrka, church, and gård, garden. But we don't say kyrkagård. No, we say kyrkogård. And this is kind of due to an old conjugation rule in Swedish that we don't use any longer. We made it easier. However, some words get stuck in time and still have the leftovers of this old grammar rule. And there's no clear pattern, at least what I know, why some words still have this old way of spelling. You kind of need to learn them by heart. Some other examples. Ett hälsoproblem, en oljekris, ett gatukök. And just like we sometimes switch some of the letters while compounding, we can also drop them. En pojkcykel, a bike for boys. We leave out the e in pojke when we compound it with the word cykel. This happens sometimes with words that ends with a vowel, but again, not always. So, these were the spelling rules and our video for you about compound words, sammansatta ord. We will do another video for you about compound words, but focusing on särskrivning, which means writing words separately. The thing that the Swedish language police hate the most, but also what makes the Swedes laugh the most. So, stay tuned for that one, and don't forget to put a like and subscribe to our channel before you go. Hej då!